He rejected a poor girl at his office, only to discover she's the CEO of the company that bought his... The sun dipped low over Port Lira, painting the coastal skyline gold as Elias Kane leaned back in his leather chair, staring out his office window. At 34, he'd clawed his way up. Kane Properties was the name on half the town's real estate signs. His desk held a framed photo of him shaking hands with the mayor, a testament to his grind. But today, the weight pressed harder. Rentals were down, investors antsy, and his temper shorter. His phone buzzed, another email from the board demanding updates. He rubbed his temples, the ache of sleepless nights settling in. The intercom crackled. "Mr. Kane, there's a girl here for the assistant job," his receptionist, Tara, said, hesitant. "No appointment, but she's persistent." Elias sighed. 5 minutes. I'm swamped." The door creaked open, and in shuffled a girl-thin frame, drowning in a faded gray coat, dark hair tangled like she'd fought the wind. Her shoes, scuffed and patched, squeaked on the polished floor. She clutched a crumpled resume, hands trembling. "Name's Leora," she said, voice soft but steady. "I heard you need help." Elias barely glanced up from his laptop. "Experience?" She shifted. "I've managed books for a fish stall, cleaned offices after hours, whatever keeps the lights on." He snorted, eyes flicking to her coat. "This isn't a charity. I need someone who can handle clients, not mop floors." Leora's jaw tightened, but she pressed on. "I'm quick. Give me a week, I'll prove it." He leaned forward, irritation flaring. "Look, kid, this is Kane Properties, not a training camp. I don't have time for strays." Her eyes, deep green, sharp, met his, unflinching. "I'm no stray. I just need a shot." He stood towering over her. "You're wasting mine." "Tara," the receptionist peeked in. "Show her out." Leora's shoulders slumped, but she didn't beg. "You'll regret this," she murmured, so low he almost missed it. "Doubt it," he snapped, turning back to his screen as she shuffled out, the door clicking shut. Alone, Elias exhaled, another distraction gone. He opened the latest financials. Red ink glared back. The Coastal Heights project, his big bet, teetered on shaky loans. He needed focus, not some desperate girl slowing him down. That night, rain lashed Port Lira's cliffs as Elias drove home, headlights cutting through the storm. His phone lit up, his CFO, Jaron. "Heard Zenith Corp's sniffing around our assets. Watch your back." Elias gripped the wheel tighter. Zenith ruthless, deep-pocketed, could swallow Kane Properties whole if he slipped. He pictured Leora's face, those defiant eyes, and shook it off. She was nothing, just a blip in a day of battles. At his seaside loft, he poured a whiskey, staring at the waves. Success was survival. He'd fought too hard to falter now. If only he knew how wrong he'd been about her. The next morning, Port Lira woke under a gray drizzle, the sea restless beyond Elias Kane's office window. He nursed a coffee, black and bitter, scrolling through Zenith Corp rumors, whispers of a takeover bid gnawing at him. Kane Properties teetered. Coastal Heights needed cash fast, or he'd lose it all. His assistant's desk sat empty. Tara had called in sick, leaving him to fend off calls. The phone rang again, another investor bailing. "Damn it," he muttered, slamming it down. A knock interrupted, sharp, insistent. "What now?" he barked. The door swung open, and there she was, Leora, same faded coat soaked through, hair plastered to her face. She held a cardboard box, dripping, onto his rug. "You again?" Elias stood, a voice sharp. "I told you." "Your mail's piling up outside," she cut in, setting the box down. "Postman said Tara's out. Thought you want this." He stared, letters, bills, a soaked contract peeking out. "You're not my errand, girl. Leave." She didn't budge, pulling a soggy envelope from her pocket. "This one's urgent. Coastal Heights lien notice. You're welcome. Elias snatched it, tearing it open, his lender demanding payment in 30 days, or they'd seize the project. His stomach dropped. Where'd you get this? Found it in the gutter. Rain's not your friend. Her tone was flat, but her green eyes glinted, sharp as glass. He crumpled the paper, fury rising. You think this buys you a job? I don't need pity from someone like you. Leora stepped closer, coat dripping. Not pity, proof. I see what others miss. You're drowning here. Give me a desk. I'll keep you afloat. He laughed, cold. You? A street kid, saving Kane properties? Get real. I am real, she said, voice low, fierce. You're the one pretending. Big man, a sinking ship. His fists clenched. Nobody talked to him like that. You've got nerve, he growled. And you've got blind spots, she shot back. That notice was trash-bound. I saved it. Imagine what I could do with a chance. For a second he wavered. Those eyes, unyielding, pierced him. Then pride kicked in. I don't gamble on strays. Out now. She lingered, then nodded. Your loss, Elias Kane. She turned, leaving wet footprints across his floor. The door shut, and silence roared. He sank into his chair, lien notice in hand. 30 days to save his dream. Her words echoed. Sinking ship. He shoved them down, dialing Jaren. Zenith circling. Any leads? They're quiet, Jaren said. Too quiet. Elias hung up, staring at the box she'd left. Order in his chaos. He scoffed, tossing the notice atop it. She was nothing, a pest, a nobody. Outside rain streaked the glass as Leora vanished into the mist, her shadow fading. If he'd looked closer, he might have seen the steel in her stride. But Elias Kane never looked twice. Port Lyra's fog clung low the next day, muffling the harbor's hum as Elias Kane paced his office. The lien notice sat pinned under a paperweight, its 30-day deadline a ticking bomb. He'd stayed late, crunching numbers. Coastal Heights hung by a thread, and Zenith Corp's shadow loomed larger. Jaren's call last night gnawed at him. They got someone local scouting us. Watch the cracks. Elias rubbed his eyes, coffee cold on his desk. Tara was back, typing quietly, but the air felt off someone watching, unseen. Outside, Leora stood under a dripping awning across the street, her gray coat blending with the mist. She'd watched him all morning, his silhouette hunched over papers, the way he'd tug his hair when stressed. She knew that look. Pride wrestling panic. Yesterday's rejection stung, but it wasn't new. She pulled a worn notebook from her bag, scribbling, Elias Kane, blind to what's coming. Her pen paused. She'd seen the lien notice before he had and fished it from the rain because she'd been tracking his mail for weeks. Not out of kindness, out of purpose. A delivery truck rumbled by, and she slipped closer, eyes on his window. She'd grown up in Port Lyra's rough edges, fish docks, back alleys, learning to read people, to find leverage. Elias thought her astray. He didn't know she'd once counted coins for survival, taught herself numbers from torn ledgers. Now she watched him unravel, a king too stubborn to see his throne cracking. Her phone buzzed, a text, no name. Any weak spots? She typed back. Plenty. He's distracted. Coastal Heights is the key. Tucking it away, she smiled, faint but cold. Inside, Elias caught a flicker, movement across the street. He squinted through the fog, but it was gone. Tara, anyone out there? She glanced up. Just rain, Mr. Kane. He shook it off, paranoia creeping. The phone rang. Jaren. Zenith's meeting with lenders tomorrow, and if they smell blood, they won't, Elias snapped. But doubt coiled tighter. He didn't see Leora step back into the haze, her green eyes locked on him one last time before vanishing. She wasn't just a girl he'd dismissed. She was the shadow he'd never suspect, waiting for his fall. and she'd been watching longer than he'd ever know. Port Lyra's sun broke through the clouds by noon, glinting off the wet streets as Elias Kane drove toward Coastal Heights. The lien notice burned in his jacket pocket. 29 days left to save it. He'd spent the morning dodging Jaren's calls, avoiding the board's grim updates. Kane Properties wasn't just a name. It was him, carved from years of grit. He pulled up to the site, half-built condos stretched along the cliff, cranes idle, workers sparse. "Where's the crow?" he barked at the foreman, a grizzled man named Cal. "Half walked. Pay's late," Cal shrugged. Elias cursed under his breath. Reality hit hard. Back at the office, Tara handed him a stack of bills, electric, suppliers, all overdue. "Jaren stopped by," she said. "Looked worried." Elias waved her off, sinking into his chair. The photo with the mayor mocked him now, success slipping like sand. He dialed his bank, voice tight. "I need an extension. Coastal Heights is solid. Just stall." The manager's reply was cold. 29 days, Kane. No more rope." He hung up, staring at the lien notice. Leora's face flashed. Those green eyes, her quiet. "You'll regret this." He dismissed her, but her words stuck like salt in a cut. Outside, the town buzzed on. Fish sellers hollered. Waves crashed below. Elias grabbed his keys, needed air, needed to think. He walked the pier, past stalls he'd once ignored. A kid haggled over a crab, reminding him of leaner days, hustling leases, scraping by. Back then, he'd have taken any help. Now, he'd kicked Leora out twice. Her coat, her nerve. She'd seen his mess before he had. He shook it off, pride bristling. She was nobody, just a girl with a soggy resume. At the pier's end, he leaned on the rail, sea spray cold on his face. His phone buzzed. "Jaren. Zenith's in town. Met your lenders. Smells like a buyout." Elias's gut twisted. Zenith Corp didn't play small. They'd gut Kane Properties, leave him a footnote. He pictured Coastal Heights razed, his name erased. The girl's voice whispered again. "Sinking ship." He clenched the rail, had to fight, had to win. Back at the office, he barked orders, cut costs, call in favors. Tara scrambled, and the phone rang nonstop. Reality was a vice, his empire shrinking, his control fraying. As dusk fell, Elias stood alone, staring at the site plans, his dream, his fight. He didn't see Leora across the street, her coat traded for a dark jacket, watching from a cafe's shadow. She sipped coffee, notebook open. Day 29. He's cracking. Her phone glowed, a reply. "Push harder." She smiled, small and sure. Elias thought he held the reins, but reality wasn't his anymore. It was hers, and she was only getting started. Night draped Port Lyra in a humid hush, streetlights flickering as Elias Kane hunched over his desk. The lien notice's 28-day mark loomed. Coastal Heights bled money, and Zenith Corp's shadow grew. He'd fired off emails, begged investor silence answered. His shirt clung, sweat mixing with dread. Jaren's last text, replayed. "Zenith's got someone inside. Check your leaks." Elias scowled. Inside? Impossible. Tara shuffled papers nearby, loyal but slow. He trusted her, didn't he? Across town, Leora sat in a dim attic room, a single bulb casting shadows over a corkboard. Photos, clippings, a map of Port Lyra pinned with red thread. Elias's face stared from a grainy shot circled target. She wasn't just a girl in a coat, she was a ghost who'd climbed from nothing. Years ago, she'd been Lila Marrow, daughter of a fisherman who'd lost everything to Kane Properties, first big deal evicted, broken, gone. She'd shed that name, rebuilt herself, numbers, deals, a quiet rise no one saw. Now she ran Zenith Corp from the dark, her title a whisper, CEO. Her phone buzzed, a report. "Kane's begging. Coastal Heights is ours in 28 days. She traced the thread to Elias's office on the map. He'd rejected her, twice, blind to the girl he'd crushed years back. She remembered his voice then, cold. Business, not charity. Now she'd turn it on him. Her notebook held a new line. He's desperate. Perfect. She'd watched him crumble, mail runs, pier walks, each move feeding her plan. Zenith wasn't just buying, it was burying him. Elias slammed his laptop shut. The screen's glow harsh. A memory nagged. Leora's eyes too steady for a stray. He dug through the soggy box she'd left. Bills, junk, then a card, half-torn. El Marrow Consultant. His breath caught. Marrow? A name from years ago, a deal he'd buried. No, it couldn't be. He tossed it, paranoia spiking. The office phone rang, unknown number. He answered gruff. Gang. A pause, then her voice, low, calm. You're running out of time, Elias. Click. He froze. Who? Leora's face flashed, but he shoved it down. Outside, she stood in the dark, watching his light flicker. Her identity wasn't his yet, but soon he'd know the cost of looking away. Port Lyra's dawn broke heavy, the sea restless, as Elias Kane stumbled into his office, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. The mystery call, "You're running out of time," had kept him awake, replaying Leora's voice, or what he thought was hers. 27 days left on Coastal Heights, and Zenith Corp's grip tightened. Jaren confirmed they'd met his lenders, terms hushed. Elias's empire was a house of cards, and he felt the wind. He rifled through the soggy box again, fishing out that card, El Marrow Consultant. The name itched, a ghost from old deals. He Googled it. Nothing. Who are you? He muttered. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Kane? Delivery, Tara said, wary. He grunted approval. A courier dropped a sleek black envelope on his desk. No sender, just his name in gold ink. He tore it open, an invitation. Port Lyra Business Gala, tomorrow night, the Crest Hotel. Guest of honor, Elias Kane. A handwritten note slipped out. Come alone. Time to talk. No signature, but the script was sharp, deliberate. His gut twisted. Zenith? A trap? He tossed it aside, but it pulled him back. He had to know. That night, Leora stood on her attic's narrow balcony, the town's lights glinting below. The gala was her move. Elias baited, her stage set. She'd traded her coat for a tailored black dress, hairpin sleek. Lila Marrow gone, Leora in command. Her phone buzzed. A board member. Kane's cracking. Coastal Heights is ours if he folds. She replied, He will. Tomorrow seals it. She'd watched him too long, his pride, his panic. Knew he'd chase any lifeline. The invitation was her hook. He'd bite. Elias spent the day scrambling. Calls to Jaren, pleas to banks, all dead ends. By dusk, he stood in his loft tugging on a tie, the invite glaring from his dresser. Guest of honor, he scoffed. It smelled like a setup, but sitting still wasn't his style. He drove to the Crest, Port Lyra's ritziest spot. Glass walls, ocean views, a crowd of suits buzzing inside. He stepped in, scanning. Jaren wasn't there, no familiar faces. A waiter handed him a drink, murmuring, Upstairs, sir. Elias climbed, heart pounding. At the top, a private room, dim, a single table. Enter. Leora sat, poised, green eyes locked on him. No coat, no tremble, just power. You, he rasped, frozen. Sit, Elias, she said, calm. We got business. He sank into the chair, invitation crumpled in his fist. Who are you? Someone you should have hired, she smiled thin. And someone who's taking Coastal Heights. His world tilted. She wasn't a stray. She was the storm he'd never seen coming, and the gala was just the start. Port Lyra's gala hummed below, a glittering mask for the storm brewing in the Crest Hotel's private room. Elias Kane sat across from Leora, her green eyes cutting through the dim light like a blade. His mind raced. 26 days to save Coastal Heights, and this girl, this nobody he'd rejected, held his fate. "Taking it," he rasped, voice rough. "You're bluffing." Leora leaned forward, elbows on the table, her black dress sharp against the soft glow. "Zenith Corp owns your lender's debts. I'm not bluffing. I'm winning." His chest tightened. Zenith. Her CO? Impossible. "You're not some stray," he said, gripping the invite's remains. "Who are you really?" She tilted her head, smile faint. "Someone who knows you, Elias, better than you know yourself." She slid a folder across, his financials, every crack exposed. Late payments, desperate loans, Coastal Heights' bleeding edge. "How'd you—" "I see what you missed," she cut in. "Always have." Her words echoed their first clash, but now they carried weight. A threat, a truth. He shoved the folder back. "What's his game?" "No game," she said calm. "A test. You got two choices, fight me and lose everything, or trust me and keep something." She pulled a contract from her Bag Kane Properties partnership with Zenith Corp. "Sign this. I take Coastal Heights. You stay on. Smaller stake, but alive." He laughed, bitter. "Trust you? After this ambush?" "You've got no one else," she replied, unflinching. 26 days. Your banks won't budge. Your board's whispering. I'm your lifeline." Her gaze softened, just a flicker. "Prove you're not the man who throws people away." Elias's hands shook. Pride roared, but fear clawed deeper. He thought of Jaren's warnings, Tara's worried looks, the empire he'd built alone. "Why me?" he asked low. "Why not just crush me?" Leora paused, fingers tracing the contract's edge. "Because I want you to feel it. Losing what you love like I did." Her voice dipped, a crack in her steel. He frowned. "Like I did?" That name Marrow tugged again. But she stood, breaking the thread. "Decide by midnight tomorrow. Meet me here, or watch it all burn." She left, heels clicking down the stairs, leaving him with the contract and her shadow. Elias stared at it. Partnership or ruin? Trust her. The girl he'd kicked out, and now his judge. He drove home through Port Lyra's quiet streets, the sea's murmur mocking him. At his loft, he poured a drink. Contract open, her terms fair, brutal. Sign, and he'd live. Fight, and he'd fall. He thought of her eyes, not just cold, but wounded. Trust wasn't his game, but losing everything wasn't either. Midnight loomed, and for once, Elias Kane didn't know his next move. Port Lyra's morning sun spilled soft over the cliffs as Elias Kane stood on his loft's balcony. The Zenith contract crumpled in his hand. 25 days left. Leora's deadline loomed at midnight. Her words replayed, "Prove you're not that man." He'd built Kane Properties on steel, ruthless deals, no regrets. But now doubt crept in. He saw her face, not just the CEO, but the girl in the coat, her quiet fire. She'd known him, cut deeper than Jaren ever had. He tossed the contract onto the table, pacing. Trust her? Or fight and fall? He drove to the office, streets alive with vendors, the sea's salt on the breeze. Tara greeted him, timid. Jaren called. Zenith's pushing lenders hard. Elias nodded, distracted. Leora's folder still sat there, his failures in ink. He flipped it open, then stopped. A faded photo slipped out. A fisherman's shack, raised for his first project. A memory hit. Evictions. A man pleading. A girl watching from the dock. Marrow. His breath caught. Leora? No, too young then. But there's eyes. He sank into his chair, heart thudding. Had he crushed her world before she'd crushed his? The phone rang. Jaren. "They're closing in, Elias. Sign or we're done." He hung up, staring at the contract. Fight meant pride. Trust meant surrender. But something else stirred. Guilt? He walked the pier again, slower, seeing faces, workers he'd cut, tenants he'd pushed. Leora's voice echoed. Losing what you love. He'd never loved anything but winning, until now, when losing felt real. Coastal Heights wasn't just land, it was him. Yet her deal spared it. Spared him. Why? Dusk fell, Port Lyra's lights twinkling. Elias stood at his desk, pen hovering over the contract. Midnight ticked closer. Trust wasn't his strength, but survival was. He thought of her. Not as a threat, but a mirror. She'd risen from nothing. He'd forgotten what that took. His heart shifted, not soft, but awake. He signed, slow, deliberate. Elias Care. The fight wasn't gone, but blind pride was. He'd face her, not as a king, but a man learning late. The sea whispered outside, Port Lyra watching, waiting for his next step. Port Lyra's midnight air hung thick as Elias Kane stood outside the Crest Hotel, the signed Zenith contract in his jacket. The gala's echo faded. 24 days left on Coastal Heights, but he'd chosen trust over ruin. Leora's test wasn't just business. It was personal, and he'd felt shift him. He climbed the stairs, heart steady but heavy, and knocked on the private room's door. It opened. Leora stood there, same black dress, green eyes searching his. "You signed," she said, taking the paper, voice even. "Didn't think you would." Elias stepped in, the room quiet, sea glinting beyond the glass. "I'm not here to lose everything," he said, meeting her gaze. "But I'm not blind anymore." She set the contract down, studying him. Less king, more man. "Why trust me now?" He pulled the faded photo from his pocket, the shack, the dock, and slid it across. "Marrow, that deal, years ago, was that you?" Her face tightened, just a flicker. "My father," she said low. "You took our home. He didn't survive it." The words landed hard. Elias saw the girl on the dock again, eyes he'd ignored. "I didn't know," he said, a voice rough. "I was chasing power," she finished, sharp. "And I chased it back." She leaned against the table. "This partnership, it's your second chance. Don't waste it." He nodded, slow. "And you? Why spare me?" She looked away, sea reflected in her eyes. "Because I'm not you. Not yet." Silence stretched. Two survivors, scars crossing. "What now?" he asked. "Work," she said, handing him a folder. Plans, timelines, Zenith's vision for Coastal Heights. "You're in, but I lead." He took it, flipping pages, solid, fair. "I can live with that." She smiled, small, real. "Good. Tomorrow, 8 a.m., my office. Bring coffee." He almost laughed. Her office? Where? "You'll see." She turned to leave, then paused. "Elias, don't make me regret this." "Same to you," he shot back, lighter than he'd felt in weeks. She vanished down the stairs, leaving him with the folder and a chance he hadn't earned. Next morning, Port Lyra shimmered under a clear sky as Elias drove to an address she'd texted. Harbor Edge, a sleek building he'd never noticed. He walked in, 2 coffees in hand, and froze, a glass-walled office, her name on the door. Leora Marrow, CEO, Zenith Corp. She sat inside, poised, waving him in. "You're late," she said, taking the cup. "Traffic," he grinned, sitting. "Nice view." "Earn it," she replied, sliding a blueprint across. Coastal Heights reborn. For once, Elias didn't fight. He listened, ready to build something new with her. Port Lyra buzzed under a late afternoon sun as Elias Kane stood backstage at the town's annual coastal summit, palm sweaty. 23 days since the lien notice, and tonight, Coastal Heights' relaunch would go live, Zenith Corp's banner beside his own. Leora had pushed him hard, weeks of plans, late nights, her sharp mind reshaping his dream. He'd fought less, learned more. Now the room swelled with suits, investors, press, Jaron in the front row, frowning. Elias adjusted his tie, the folder she'd given him, tucked under his arm. Leora stepped up beside him, crisp in a navy suit, green eyes calm. "Ready?" she asked, voice low. "For you to steal the show?" "Sure," he quipped, masking nerves. She smirked. "It's ours. Don't joke," the host called them. Elias Kane and Leora Marrow, Zenith Corp., and they walked out, lights blinding, applause uneven. Elias took the podium first. "Kane Properties was my fight," he started steady. "But tonight it's more Coastal Heights reborn, thanks to Zenith." Murmurs rippled, his humility a shock. He stepped back. Leora took over. "This isn't just a project," she said firm. "It's Port Lyra's future. Jobs, homes, built right." He clicked a remote, screens lit with renderings, sleek and bold. The crowd leaned in. Jaren's frown deepened. "And Elias," she added, glancing at him, "proved he's more than his past." A Beether nod was small, but it hit him hard. Questions flew. "Zenith's takeover?" "No," Elias cut in. "Partnership, I'm still here." Leora's eyes flickered, approval. Off stage, Jaren cornered him. "You're giving her your soul?" "No," Elias said firm. "I'm sharing it." Leora joined, overhearing. "He's learning," she said dry. Jaren stalked off, old loyalties fraying. Outside, Port Lyra's cliffs glowed under dusk as Elias and Leora stood by the rail. "Big stage," he said, exhaling. "You held it," she replied softer. "We did." He met her gaze, not foes, not yet friends, but something forging. The sea roared below. 23 days ago, he'd rejected her. Now they'd faced the town together. The real test was still ahead, but tonight Elias felt the shift. He wasn't alone anymore. Port Lyra's dawn crept soft over the harbor, 20 days since the lien notice, as Elias Kane walked the Coastal Heights site. Cranes hummed now. Workers shouted Zenith's cash had revived it. His name still on the signs beside Leora's. The summit's buzz lingered, investors back, Jaren distant. But Elias felt the shift deeper. He'd signed her deal, faced the stage, and found something he'd lost. Roots. Today they'd unveil the first tower, his past circling back. He drove to her office, a coffee for her, black like she liked. Leora waited outside, wind tugging her coat. Not the faded one, but sharp, new. "You're early," she said, taking the cup. "First time for everything," he grinned. They walked the site together, her plans, his tweaks, a dance of trust. Workers nodded to her. She knew their names. Elias watched, struck. She'd built this from ashes he'd left. At the tower's base, she stopped. "This spot," she said quiet. "My dad's shack stood here." He froze, full circle. "Leora, I—" "Don't," she cut in. "You didn't know then. You do now." He nodded, throat tight. "I took it from you. And I took it back," she said, eyes steady. "But this," she waved at the tower, "it's ours." A horn blared ribbon-cutting time. They stood side by side, scissors in hand, cameras flashing. "To new starts," Elias said loud. "To earning them," Leora added, softer. The ribbon fell, cheers rose. Later, by the cliff, he faced her. "You could have ruined me. Why this?" She looked out, sea glinting. "Revenge was the plan. Then I saw you fight, not just for you, but this." Her voice dipped. "Like he did. Elias saw it, her father in her, him in both." "Full circle," he murmured. "Not quite," she said, faint smile. "That's tomorrow." She walked off, leaving him with the sea and a past he couldn't undo, but could rebuild. Port Lyra watched, its tides turning with them. Port Lyra shimmered under a twilight sky, 19 days since the lien notice, as Elias Kane stepped into Zenith Corp's glass lobby. Leora had called him here. No details, just be ready. Coastal Heights towered outside, alive again. His dream, her victory. He'd rejected her, a poor girl in a coat, only to stand now in her world. The elevator climbed. His tie felt tight, her coffee order still in his hand. The doors opened to her office, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the sea. She stood by her desk, suit crisp, a box beside her. "Elias," she said, calm. "Sit." He did, wary. "What's it?" She pushed the box forward, his soggy mail from weeks ago, her first delivery. "Open it." Inside, a photo, her father, her, the shack. Then papers, deeds, old leases, his signature on the eviction. His stomach sank. "You kept this?" "Proof," she said, leaning back, "of who you were." He met her eyes, green, unflinching. "And now?" She pulled a new folder. Kane Properties, co-owned by Elias Kane and Leora Marrow. "This is who we are." He stared, co-owned. "You're giving it back?" "No," she said, firm. "Sharing it. Zenith bought your company. I'm the CEO who took it." "But you've earned this." Her voice softened. "I rejected ruin for this." Elias flipped the pages, his stake restored, her name beside his. "Why?" he asked, hoarse. She stood, walking to the window. "You were the man who took my home. Then the one who signed my deal, faced the stage, built with me. I saw him change." Port Lyra glowed below, his empire, her rise. "I'm sorry," he said, first time aloud. "For your dad, for you." She turned, eyes wet but steady. "I know. That's why we're here." She handed him a pen. "Sign or walk. Final reveal's yours." He took it, hand steady, Elias Kane beside Leora Marrow. "Partners," he said, voice thick. "Equals," she corrected, smiling small. They stood at the glass, town sprawling, his rejection a lifetime ago, her power now theirs. Later on the pier, Elias watched the waves. She joined him, quiet. "Full circle?" he asked. "New one," she said. He'd spurned a poor girl, only to find she'd bought his world, and handed it back, rebuilt. Port Lyra's lights danced, her father's loss, his gain, their story sealed in ink and trust. Thanks for diving into this Time Lens Stories journey, Elias and Leora's tale of rejection and redemption. If you loved it, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and share it with your crew. More heart-grabbing stories await. Let's keep the Time Lens vibe alive.